Hello and welcome to WION's live broadcast from Paris. I'm Sarah Coates and these are the headlines. Beijing is under lockdown as China battles to contain rising COVID cases, with schools, restaurants, gyms, salons and other facilities remaining shut for a week on the Chinese capital. Pakistan's government nominates a former spy master to be the next military chief, a position long considered the real power in the nuclear-armed nation of 220 million people. Russia's Federal Security Service says it's prevented Ukrainian special services from carrying out sabotage on the South Stream gas pipeline. Energy providers in Kiev are struggling to restore electricity, with about 70% of the capital still offline after another barrage of rockets targeted Ukraine's grid. And EU energy ministers meet to debate measures to mitigate the energy crunch in Europe, but we're divided over a gas price cap proposal slammed by many as a joke. Well, the UK's energy regulator Ofgem says a price cap for average household energy bills will rise by about 21%. Well, that means the price cap will increase to about $5,200 per year from January until the end of March 2023. However, households will not pay this amount, as Ofgem's price cap has been replaced by a government-backed price guarantee, which is set at $3,000 per year for an average consumption. Well, the move comes as the UK is facing a forecasted lengthy recession, and it's intended to support the consumers against the economic shock due to Russia's war on Ukraine. Well, the government action will save the typical household more than $2,100. This is according to analysts. Well, the government's scheme is to help with energy bills, which is expected to reach £42 billion over the 18 months. Well, meanwhile, the UK Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is warning that universal energy bills support will not continue beyond spring 2024. That's if household bills continue to remain high. The Chancellor adding that people will have to take responsibility for their bills, urging the public to play their part in cutting usage. European energy prices started to rise as the world emerged from COVID-19 lockdowns and again surged in February following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, many UK energy companies have struggled in the face of soaring wholesale energy costs, as the price caps limit how much of increases can be passed on to customers. Right, now for more on this story, let's go to our correspondent Alex Isaac, joining us live from London. Alex, firstly, tell me, what is the reaction to this?
Well, there's a lot of people are saying, well, there's more money now coming from government. So no matter that people think that they're saving this money, actually, because of the taxes and implementation of how much the government has to subsidise, sadly, it's going to come straight back into the pockets of taxpayers because that money has to come from somewhere. We understand that there's going to be a £25 million push to start an advertising campaign to get people to turn off their radiators or lower their thermostats. That's a lot of money, and that's on top of £5 billion that we're expecting that the government will have to subsidise just to hold that price cap of £3,000 before we even get to January and April, where it's going to go up to over £4,500. So the government is spending a lot of money to what it says is going to save customers money in the long run. But actually, a lot of people are saying it's not really saving us anything, because we are still paying out, and whether or not it's going to be paying out to gas companies, it's still going to be paying out on taxes in the long run. So people are quite unhappy, but they do also understand that there doesn't seem to be any alternatives. We did step too far away from looking at alternatives, at renewable energies, at wind farms. We are quite unfortunately focused on the gas lines, and because of Putin's war, we are having to deal with people taking the gas lines we usually go for in Norway and Finland, and now there's going to be a lack of gas there. So there's been a lot of concern about where we're going to get our gas from over the winter, not even go looking to 2024. People are worried. They're worried about blackouts, they're worried about energy, and they're worried about costs.
Yeah, you're certainly right there. Tell me, what is the government telling people to do, given that this situation, as you mentioned, is just becoming worse and worse, with many households really unable to afford these increases?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a really dire situation for so many. So the government plans, as I said, to this £25 million push of this marketing, and they're going to look for celebrities to do adverts, which definitely won't go down very well with the general public. But they're saying to people, there's like 8 things that you can do, 8 changes to lower your bills by, they're claiming £400. And they include lowering your boiler, turning off the heating when you leave the house, turning off your electricity when you leave the house, all your electric devices, also taking showers over baths, taking shorter showers, and lowering your thermostat. Now, this all does seem like common sense, and a lot of people already do these things. And this is the reason that Liz Truss didn't want to actually do this public service announcement back when she was Prime Minister, because she didn't think it was right to showcase these ideologies from the government and force them on the people, basically putting the onus on the people that it's their fault that their bills are going up, when actually it really isn't. So asking people to just turn off the electrics and have showers instead of baths, but not everybody can do that, of course. There's a lot of people who rely on certain devices, especially medical devices in households, and they'll see their bills soaring, and they can't do anything like turn off those electric devices or do many of the 8 changes that the government is trying to implement. Ultimately, it's all well and good that the government is trying to push, but £25 million on this push, it does seem that Liz Truss might have been right in one thing, that's a lot of money wasted to add on top of the £5 billion that they're already spending to subsidise.
Yeah, you're certainly right there, Alex. Alex, for us there, thank you very much. All right, let's move on now to our guest, Clisman Murati, who is the founder and CEO of London-based World Affairs Research Consultancy. Clisman, thank you so much for coming on. Firstly, tell us, what can we expect for businesses? We know that they are really having a very, very tough time at the moment, having to really pass on these price rises, these energy rises that they're having to spend more money on to consumers.
Well, it's not as easy to tell businesses to not use as much electricity, especially when service businesses like restaurants, etc., that's a prime method of creating the income by cooking the food, etc. So I think the message to businesses isn't going to be the same as the message to the normal consumer because of the fundamental differences that we see. So I think those businesses who have scale, who can afford to bring in more income, who can actually push to do this, are going to be those which are better off. The smaller sort of boutique or one sort of coffee shops that you see around you who are run by small business owners are probably going to suffer the most, given the fact that food inflation is also going up. So they're seeing their profits eroded by both higher energy prices and also higher food costs. So naturally, these are going to be the companies which are going to suffer, which I think the government should focus on helping much more so.
Yeah, and how likely is it that, we could potentially see any extra help from the government to keep these businesses afloat?
Well, there have been a lot of policies which have been put forward to help businesses. For example, even during COVID, we had the reduction of VAT or completely VAT being taken off. And given the issues, the geopolitical issues that we're facing now, I think it depends on what businesses need. So the consumer groups and the firms which represent businesses need to put a case forward to government saying this is what the industry is looking for, this is how you can help, and these are the benefits that we see. So it's going to be a drawn-out process, but what's very key in a situation like this is communication on both sides, because unheard frustrations are only going to cause more economic damage, resulting in layoffs, resulting in higher prices, and resulting in sort of bad customer satisfaction, which means more people don't go to restaurants because of this. So communication is key in times of strain like this.
All right, Klisma Murati there. Thank you so much for joining us there live from London. All right, moving on, and in the UK, more than 70,000 university staff are going on strike over pay and pensions, with up to 2.5 million students facing disruption. According to reports, this is the biggest strike in the history of UK higher education. Well, the strike is scheduled to take place tomorrow and Wednesday of next week. According to the University and College Union, it's set to bring the higher education sector to a standstill. Well, the members of the strike also include university administrators, cleaners, security and catering staff, with their demands including a pay rise in recognition of the cost of living crisis. Well, the universities have said that they'll put measures in place to reduce the impact on students' learning. Well, Higher Education Minister Robert Halfon said that the strikes are hugely disappointing, citing the education disruption faced by the students during the pandemic. Now, the walk-off work comes after a series of strikes in the UK, from rail workers to Royal Mail.
One without the other. The Department for Education co-chairs the creation.
All right, well, Turkey's hit Syria with a barrage of retaliatory shelling in the aftermath of the Istanbul bombing. The Turkish airstrikes targeting Kurdish forces controlling northern Syria's Al-Hol detention camp. Now, according to British-based war monitor body, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the Turkish planes launched airstrikes on the exterior of the camp. But, on the contrary, a spokesperson for the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces has come out to say that Turkish planes launched at least 5 strikes inside the camp. Now, according to the British-based war monitor body, the camp is home to over 50,000 people, including relatives of the Kurdish groups. As of now, no casualties have been reported from the strikes, but after the strikes were carried out near the camp, it sparked chaos among the residents. Meanwhile, a huge fire also erupted at an oil field, with thick plumes of smoke seen rising from the facility in Catania.
الفيديو هذا بيود تشتغلي ليدا قدام كان بيدي وليدا عندنا في غرفة بس الموتور ده ما بيتن حتى شظيج مديت فرين وجدقطة طياري أو شظيج حمو وقباراني شيء بسسري ماذا.
Now, those strikes carried out by Ankara are also coming uncomfortably close to hitting US forces in northeastern Syria, within 300 metres of the base, and according to the US Central Command, which oversees approximately 900 US troops in Syria, tasked with countering the Islamic State terror group, no personnel were at the base when the strike was carried out. Furthermore, the US chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, spoke by phone with his Turkish counterpart, emphasising the need to maintain communications. Now, the strikes come after the Turkish President Erdogan said that he was mulling to go beyond airstrikes and launch a ground operation in Syria. The Turkish president also renewing warnings that those attacking Turkey will pay dearly. Now, this comes after Ankara's forces launched air raids on bases of outlawed Kurdish groups in northern Syria and Iraq on Sunday, with Turkey blaming the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or the PKK, and Syrian People's Protection Units, or the YPG, for the Istanbul blasts that killed 6 people and left another 81 others wounded. Well, a day after the outgoing Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro challenged his loss in last month's presidential elections, the head of Brazil's court has now rejected the complaint. Alexandre de Moraes, who serves as a Supreme Court Justice, has also fined Bolsonaro's party of $4.27 million for what the court is describing as bad faith litigation. Well, in a ruling, Moraes described the challenge as offensive to the democratic norms. Now, the decision further reading that the ballot boxes generate files that make it possible to identify precisely which equipment they were generated on. It further outlined that if one of these machines stops working, then there are others who replace it, without affecting the traceability and the possibility of identifying these ballot boxes. Meanwhile, under the court's decision, the political funds for the president's coalition parties have been blocked until the fine is paid, with the ruling also ordering an investigation into the misuse of the party's structure and its funds. Now, the outgoing president, Jair Bolsonaro, has refused to concede defeat or congratulate his rival Lula da Silva, who secured a narrow victory over Bolsonaro on October 30.
Reconhecer que nunca teve envolvimento meu com a Petrobras e toda a amargura que eu passei, todo o sofrimento que eu passei.
Well, Anwar Ibrahim has been sworn in as the 10th Prime Minister of Malaysia, ending days of post-coalition deadlock and political uncertainty. Well, the swearing-in ceremony taking place at the Southeast Asian nation's palace, the results announced earlier in the day saying the king is satisfied that Anwar and his coalition had secured enough support from the fellow elected representatives. Earlier, the key part of Malaysia's former ruling coalition had indicated that it is ready to support the opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim as the Prime Minister. His appointment caps a 3 decades-long journey where he spent nearly 10 years in jail for alleged corruption. The 75-year-old was the Deputy Prime Minister back in the 1990s. Meanwhile, supporters of Anwar Ibrahim are seen here celebrating after the king appointed long time as the Prime Minister.
My feeling about this news is joy. We have waited too long for this, and it's time for us to receive someone who can give a better commitment to Malaysia.
All right, moving on now. And in South Korea, around 2,500 truckers have gone on strike for the second time in 6 months. Well, this has now threatened to disrupt manufacturing and fuel supplies for industries from automotive to petrochemicals. The truckers are on strike demanding that a minimum pay system have be made permanent. It's due to expire by the end of this year. They're also demanding an expansion in benefits for truckers in other industries, including oil tankers, with the government agreeing to extend minimum wage guarantees while rejecting all other demands. Now, the organising union kicked off 16 rallies across the country earlier today, with the lead organiser warning that the strike could stop oil supplies at major refineries as well as transport at major ports and industrial plants. Well, the head of the union stated that they have no choice but to stop all logistics in Korea. South Korea's Prime Minister is calling for the truckers to return to work, while the country's Transport Minister is calling the protest a selfish act, adding that the government will make all efforts to ensure public life is not disrupted.
경기 침체를 극복하기 위해서 다 같이 힘을 모아도 부족한 시기에 일방적으로 강행되는 화물연대의 집단 운송 거부는 국가 경제를 볼모로 정당성과 명분이 모두 없는 매우 이기적인 행동이라고 하지 않을 수 없습니다. 집단 운송 거부에 참여하지 않는 화물 운전자에 대한 운송 방해, 협박, 위해 등 불법 행위에 대해서는 끝까지 추적하여 무관용 원칙으로 단호하게 대응하겠습니다.
Well, the global bidding war for Manchester United has taken an interesting turn. Former captain and club legend David Beckham is reportedly keen on an ownership role as part of a consortium. This after owners, the Glazer family, buckled under pressure, announcing that they were ready to sell the club. Well, Beckham is a product of the famed Manchester United Academy and was one of the stars of the class of '92, alongside Gary Neville, Phil Neville, Nicky Butt, Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes. Well, the former England captain was at Old Trafford for over a decade and achieved superstardom that few can dream of. Now, nearly 20 years after his departure as a player, the 47-year-old wants to pick up a stake in the 20-time top-flight champions. Well, the Glazers are potentially seeking a sum of $6 billion for the club that they bought in 2005, but Beckham alone cannot afford that sum. But many people close to him have indicated he's open to talks with potential buyers to form an investment consortium that can then purchase the club. Well, Beckham already co-owns American Major League Soccer club Inter Miami FC and English club Salford City with his other mates from the class of '92. Well, Manchester United boyhood fan and British billionaire Jim Ratcliffe has also reportedly renewed his interest in buying the club. Well, he was interested in buying United in August, but was turned down by the Glazers. Well, Ratcliffe is a chairman of chemical company Ineos, which already owns the French football club Nice and Swiss side FC Lausanne. Well, the company also holds a stake in the Mercedes F1 team and owns the Ineos Grenadiers cycling team. Well, Twitter owner and Telsa CEO Elon Musk had also flirted with the idea of buying United in the summer, and his tweet garnered worldwide attention. Well, his interest didn't turn out to be genuine at the time, but he is one of the few who could easily fund this deal. Now, the other potential buyers for the Red Devils could include Jim O'Neill, the former Goldman Sachs chief economist, who led the Red Knights consortium of Man Utd fans in an attempt to buy the club in 2010. Well, Dubai's sovereign wealth fund has been named in reports as a potential bidder for Man Utd, while former Man Utd director Michael Knighton has also been attempting to put together his own consortium to buy the club. All right, now with Christmas just a month away, the festive fever is ramping up in several parts of the world. Germany's oldest Christmas market opened its gates after 2 years. Let's take a look. And that's your WION News Update. I'm Sarah Coates in Paris. See you next time.
There are many other